In Minecraft, we have two different types of bows. They're both really good at hitting stuff at close range, but they always struggle a little bit when it comes to something a little bit further down. And today, I want to be able to make a new bow that is going to be better at hitting things from further range and have some other nice benefits. Now, I'm going to be doing this with a mod that I've actually been working on for a little bit. There's others tools in here, and I've been mainly just adding tools, but I'm not going to be touching any of these today because I'm looking into finally adding weapons to this mod. It's called Vanilla Bean. If you want to play with those are out already and will be in the description, but this is where my main focus is going to be at. TWT and Sergio from my Discord server were the ones coming up with these ideas for a longbow, and they came up with different enchantments I could have, so I'm going to be looking to implementing these because I think it could be really fun. First off being the item itself. Let's get a texture and let's get a recipe, right? Alright, I believe I've put it in here. Let me go look in the creative inventory. There it is, a longbow. Whoa, it's a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
That's what C shit. Ah!
And I really like the texture as well that was made by Sergio in the Discord. I really like the additional parts up at the top, as well as how much longer the string looks. Really good stuff. It also still looks vanilla-like. So I set up some of the functionality, not all of it. I believe I might be able to pull it back. I can, although it's for very short. Oh, and it does shoot. Interesting. So I think it's because I haven't put the different textures in for the shooting, and it also doesn't pull back too far. Wait, did I just pick up a stack of arrows? Why am I picking up a stack of arrows? What? Do you see that? Okay, that's weird. I got a lot to fix there. And then, yeah, I have to make all the textures of it being drawn back as well as make it shoot further. So I've been playing around to try to see exactly when the player starts pulling back with their bow. That way I can change the texture on my own instead of relying off the game system. So I have it set up right now where I actually am able to see when it's using the item, but it's really interesting because it shows up 3 times at once. Like, you see that? It happened 3 times at once. And then if I hold it, it's gonna do it again, which is really weird because I set the time to, I think, 2 seconds, which would make sense for how long this is. But after 2 seconds, it resets instead of just keeping me holding it down. So I might have to like recreate that entire process. I'm not entirely sure, but it's good I'm able to at least see when the player starts holding it down so I can start tracking how long they've been holding. All right, so here we go. I made a pullback animation here, although it is very quick, as you can tell. I did that a little too fast. I'm not going to show off entirely before I fix that, but how it works is basically when you start to pull back, it switches a little thing on that starts counting every tick. It increases this number by like 0.25, and then at certain parts of that tick it will pull back the bow. Although right now it is displaying the pull back animation even though I'm not pulling it back. Oh, it's when you left click. That's weird. It's treating the left clicking as me pulling it or using the item. Alright, we'll have to fix that too. So I've now made it draw back a lot longer here, and it all actually stays now, and the different steps goes through way slower, which is good because the idea is that this is gonna have a way longer draw time than like a regular bow. Like, that was quick, and this should be like almost double or so to get to full. I still have to make the arrows shoot further, but that won't be too bad, I don't think. And I also gotta make it stop giving me so many arrows. So yeah, I'm gonna do that next. Alright, so I think I might have gotten the arrow shooting mechanic down. Let's test real quick. Oh, it shot right at my foot. That was great. Let me fix that. Alright, so I've been messing around with a lot of things. Basically, on the side there, you can see a little score value. This was going up to the pool MBT data that is placed on this bow here. You can see it here. There's a thing called pooling, which is a boolean, and then pool, which is a double. This is set to 1 whenever I'm pulling the bow back, and then 0 when I'm not. And then this is how many, I guess, ticks that I've been pulling back for. But this number was going up a lot more than it used to because right now I got it to work and I'm able to get that number on the right, but it's taking a lot longer to charge my bow up before because I set the cap to 960, which I didn't realize was like every tick, but before it wasn't. Before it went through 960 within like 2 seconds. So this is now working. I can in fact charge this bow up. It's gonna take a while. Before, that value on the right was just staying at 0 the entire time I held it down, which means it just was not getting this value. Somehow the way I was referencing the MBT, it wasn't actually changing, and now it is. And yeah, it takes a while to charge up now. I'm just gonna release it here. The max is 961. but as you can see, it is modifying the power. So it gave me the pool value, it gave me the power, which I'm using this really weird equation to figure out. I'm taking the number, I was dividing it by 960 and then multiplying it by 10, but that isn't enough power to what I want it to be, so I might up that number a lot, as well as just decrease the ticks a lot. But I'm finally happy I got that working. That took a long time just to get that data value. I thought a bunch of other stuff was wrong with it, but it wasn't. My bad, I didn't test the right thing. So let's get an actual reasonable value in there. All right, so I've been playing around these values and I think I got it to a good spot now. So I've been playing around with the different values on here, trying to find a good balance. And what I've found is usually that target right there is impossible to hit, but while aiming up slightly, you could still hit it now with a longbow, just like that. Perfect shot on the middle there. So it has more power and is able to do tighter shots. It's also able to just go further with less drop. So from the edge of this block, I'm going to shoot once with the longbow at the top of the peak right there, and then I'm going to do it with the normal bow. So you see that normal one went off to the side, went down, landed right about there. The longbow was very accurate. Where did that zombie come from? That shot was a lot more accurate, as you could tell, only dropping about 3 blocks from that far. And it actually also increases accuracy as you pull back. So if I shoot a bunch like this, I mean, it's a little bit harder to tell, but like from here maybe, it won't be, it's still pretty accurate, but not as accurate as a full power shot, which just goes a lot faster. I've noticed that with some of the higher power levels, sometimes the arrow looks like it's going in a trajectory that it isn't, but it always ends up in the same spot. I also want to show you the knockback that the bow has. It also scales with how far you pull it back with this guy right here. Yep. It knocked it back pretty far for water, at least. Let me get something on land. Alright, so I've been doing some testing. I believe I have it in a good place now. When I shoot him, you can see that the knockback is pretty well. And after a second shot, it was actually able to kill there. Usually it took me 3, but okay. Clear I wasn't pulling back in the previous attempts. So what was happening was that the damage was being calculated a little differently. It's actually multiplied by the amount of power in your shot, which is how far this is drawn back by, as well as being multiplied by 2. So it was 2 times the damage I was setting times the power, which means that it was doing a lot more damage than I thought it was. So I believe now it is close to, or at least a little bit better than a bow. For damage wise, the knockback is a lot more. And I think that's pretty reasonable. So like that's a normal shot, and then there's a full bow shot. So I think that scales well. Of course, subject to change. One thing you may notice in my inventory right now is that there's a new bug. As I scroll over to this, it's going to start pulling back. I didn't implement this entirely correctly because you can switch off of a longbow and while you pull it back, and it will stay pulled back, and then it will continue to pull back when you're on it. And there's also another issue where when I throw it, it's going to fire, which isn't intentional. Obviously, you shouldn't fire when you throw it. And then when you pick them back up, they start in a pulled back state already, but then reset when you mouse over it. So clearly something is up there that I gotta fix, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I think we're finally starting to get like a good ground level for this item. All right, so let's get a crafting recipe up in here. So what I decided on was, of course, you're gonna need your sticks, you're gonna need your string, but now I've included leads and tripwire hook on the end here to create the longbow. So now it is in here as well in the recipe book. And so the main thought process behind this, the tripwire hook adds iron into the recipe, makes it a little bit more expensive. Same with the leads, it adds not only more string, but as well as slime balls, or unless you go and find a watering trader and you kill them. And I believe tripwire hooks, there's like another thing to them. Oh, just more wood. So in overall, it's just way more expensive than the bow, but that's going to be balanced with the higher power that it will have. That recipe actually directly came from my Discord server from those 2 I mentioned earlier. But now, of course, is the most fun part, I fell off, of the new feature creation, and where I have to look into making new enchantments. And I got to look into exactly what we want here, because we could do the usual bow thing, add power, add punch, add unbreaking and mending. I'm not even sure if I can directly reference those or if I have to recreate those, but there are some other interesting ideas that I would like to play with. So the first enchantment here that I was working on includes these items as the recipes. So bottle enchantings in the corner as well as a book in the middle, like all of my other enchantments. Diamond pickaxe on the bottom, white wool on the sides, and obsidian up top to make the weight enchantment. This is going to work very interestingly. You're going to be able to destroy certain blocks with the bow, and the idea is that there's 3 levels to this. This is just weight 1. You would have to craft up to 4 times to get the max level, of course, being level 3. The idea being that the first level is like simple, very easy to break items like glass, maybe some vegetation types like that. The second level will be stuff that are soft, like gravity blocks, those things that shovels are really good at mining. That's being sand, dirt, gravel. And then the second level is something that pickaxes will be able to break, just depending on the level. I know they suggested in the Discord is where this idea comes from, like using up to iron level, but I feel like it might be too OP. We'll have to play around with that. And I have to decide exactly what items those are actually next, because these are kind of just like open pools, except for that last one where it's kind of more defined. And this one, I kind of need to recreate that myself. I can't just say all the things that a shovel has to break. I have to go through and figure that out. So I guess I should do that now. Alright, so I went around and I've pretty much trying to categorize all these blocks and stuff into areas so I could quickly reference them. So everything in the level 1 here are things I would consider very fragile. They're not really full blocks and stuff, so, or if they are full blocks, they're really fragile. So, you know, we got glass, panes, leaves, and saplings here. Obviously anything that is already transparent I don't have to add here, so like flowers, saplings, because it's just gonna go right through them anyway. I included cobwebs even though I said that, but I actually don't think these slow arrows down. I was thinking like I should remove these if they slow arrows down, and as well as the way like it'd be interesting to be able to shoot these down, but I don't even know if they slow arrows. I think arrows could go right through them. I don't know if I'll keep that then. It might be interesting though to be able to like shoot down cobwebs from different areas. Chains are included because I think that'd be kind of funny. Bamboo is a solid plant that just makes sense to me. Snow layers, of course, and everything here also includes all variations, so that's every color of glass. That's soul lanterns. That includes all colors of candles, all 4 types of the sea pickles, all the different leaf variants, stuff like that. So that's level 1. Level 2 here is everything that shovels can break, at least to my knowledge. I think I got them all. This also includes all variants, so that includes all the suspicious kinds of these. It includes farmland and path blocks, all the grass stuff here. Got your sand, your clay, your mud. I also included wool here, even though it's not a shovel block, just because it's another one of those blocks I would consider fragile, but I don't want to include over here because I already included carpet, so I figured it should be like a level up from there. The third group is not included at all. The level 3 is meant to be able to take out anything that a stone pickaxe could. So everything here is what a stone pickaxe can't break, and you would not be able to break with this level of enchantment. One thing to note is that these include deep slate variants of the ores, and it's actually a lot less than I thought. I felt like a stone pickaxe couldn't break most things in the game, but I looked at the wiki and it looks like it's only these blocks. I might be wrong, but I think it is right. You can tell by the incorrect for stone tool tag on there. I should be right. Hopefully I am. If not, I'll continue to update these if I find any more, but let's just get these in for now. So I think I did find some new things to include over here in the not included section. That being obviously command blocks, barriers, end portal stuff, structure block stuff. Right here is actually a structure void, and then right here is a light block. Piston might seem weird, but it's actually the block it turns into while moving. That's fun because it just broke my nether portal. End portal frame as well as its gateway, and I decided to include beacons here just because I feel like shooting a beacon out feels like it shouldn't be allowed, although it is covered in glass. Like it's a weird mix, right? Like kind of hard to determine. Over here I decided to include honey and slime because they seem like weaker types. And I believe that's all the updates. What I wanted to really show you though is I think I've gotten the basic functioning in. I have something set up so it should just tell me if a arrow's been shot from a longbow, and it should display something in chat when that happens. So let's test that. Alright, that's great. Does not work. Alright, so I just spent a very long time trying to figure out something really important with the bow. For anything to really work for enchantment wise, especially this new one that I'm working on, I need to know when an arrow is flying through the air and if it is from a longbow. And I spent a long time trying to get data from the arrow. I was able to set it in MBT. Spent forever trying to figure that out because I'm dumb and was not doing it the right way. Now that works, and hopefully with that functionality in, the weight enchantment will actually work on the bow. Whoa, that is a weird texture. That does not look like the normal enchantment glint. That's fun. Let's see if I could break glass. I cannot. That's fun. And I actually immediately know why. I'm currently looking to see if there's any block within the arrow, and it's not within a block technically. Like the coordinates of this arrow is not this one, it's this one. Either way, it looks like my detection for if it's in a block or not is not working. Let's go back to fix that. All right, so I've set up something here to try to be able to test these different levels of weight. So the first layer here being glass, that's part of level 1. Second layer slime, that's level 2. Third layer, since that is only unable to break these things and able to break everything else, I just chose iron bars because it's see-through and would count towards being able to be broken. And then the last layer is beacons, which is a part of this section, so it won't be broken by the weight enchantment at all. And I was able to kind of set something up, so let's see if this works. There we go. So you can see it is inconsistent, but I can in fact break blocks. That was 1 out of 3 attempts. It seems to be directional, so it just depends. Like that one broke, but I haven't been able to get any to break from this angle or from this angle. But from this angle, it is possible. It just depends for some reason. Right now, what I have in chat are the coordinates that the blocks are being checked. So how it works is an arrow, when it gets shot, gets marked with a longbow tag like I showed you. And then every single arrow is also marked with what level of weight it was shot with. So each of these have 1 level of weight. And then we have a script that is going through all of the entities around me, checking to see which ones are arrows. It's a 128 radius, and if any of those are arrows that are longbow arrows that have a weight value, then they are looking at the blocks that are supposed to be in front of the arrow and then breaking those. But I'm unsure exactly how that is like calculated, because it's just using direction offsets and then using the position of the block at the direction offset, which to me seems to be making some of it wrong. Like at some points it finds the block and sometimes it doesn't. The other issue could be the calculation only runs while the arrow has a power level, and I think when the arrows are landing they lose all power. Maybe it has arrow or has power level when it's in the air. I can't even find one. Perhaps power level is something that the game is calculating when I refer to it. I'm not entirely sure unless I'm blind. There's probably a better way to calculate exactly what block's in front of the arrow and remove it. Alright, so this is really exciting. Why is another port making noise? I have got this to work finally. So I changed it a little bit. Right now you don't have to actually charge it all the way, but I'm planning to make it so you're forced to charge halfway through the bow, but then once you let go, it is able to shoot right through the block that you're looking at if it is a part of that list. So right now we just have weight 1 on it, so it is only going through the lighter blocks like glass, and it's working on every single angle. What I had to do was I'm raycasting from the arrow out 1 block from itself. Looks like I'm really close to it, and then it is taking that face of that block, and then it is taking the direction offset from it. So like this face is, I believe, the south face, so it's taking the Z offset, which is +1, and it's subtracting that from the arrow's Z position, and then taking the Y offset, which is none in this case, and adding that to the arrow position. So in theory, if you're facing -X, it's subtracting an X. If you're facing +X, it'd be adding an X. If you're facing down, it'll subtract a Y. If you're facing up, it'll add a Y. And then on the Z's, it's inversed, but for some reason it works. So I don't think I'll question it. And it's not like a position thing. It's not like being different because I'm in negative coordinates, -X and -Z coordinates, because I went to other coordinates and it was fine. So it's a little weird. Let's test to see if the other levels even work, because I haven't even like looked at those yet. So this is level 2, and it should be able to go right through that. There you go. That's the other thing. I did make it break and leave the blocks. So since slime blocks don't have to be removed with any block, they actually drop on the ground. This should be able to break through literally everything. if that worked. It might be a little weird with iron bars now thinking about it. Oh, it went through that one. And obviously didn't go through the beacon. So that's good. I don't know why I have a button here for replacing all the beacons. It's never going to break one. Speaking of which, I should see if it will go through other things. It's looking reluctant to go through this quartz, even though it's not on the list of not being able to break. It's on weight level 3. Oh, it broke the dirt block. That's a weight level 2 requirement, though. Maybe it's a little different with a weight level 3. Maybe it's not calculating perfect. Because like, it's able to take out that dirt block perfectly. That's a level 2. Level 3 would be that stone. It went right through that. What's with that quartz, though? Leaves will be fine. So the other thing it is also able to do is currently it just breaks as many blocks as it takes to slow the arrow down, which for some reason is like very rarely none. But it is possible for it to be 2. So I believe from up here that might be able to break through 2 blocks. It really depends on like the angles and stuff. It's very situational. The one key thing to note is I believe the edges of blocks is a little weird. Shooting at some edges of the blocks will not work. Sometimes it will. It's because like it might read the face from the block inside of it. I don't know. It hasn't been too inconsistent. The one thing that's worrying me is how it just won't go through this quartz, even though it's on the list. It's not. There you go. That seems to be like a distance thing or a charging thing. I'm not sure. It might not be charging it enough, but it is going through. So I'm going to add a few limitations to it just to make sure it can only go through 1 block. I've had a few instances where it goes through 2, and I think it's fine to limit that, as well as increase the power level requirement, so you have to pull it back further. Some edge cases won't work out, and I'm not sure if I should spend a ton of time looking into that, or just say something like you have to hit the center of the block to break it, so it requires some accuracy. Turning a bug into a feature, we'd love to see it, but honestly, I think that might be the best way to go just because it might take a long time. What's upsetting is these bars, though. I think it's because they're so thin that the raycast is having trouble finding them. Or maybe it's one of those things where it has to be really dead on. Because I was able to break 1 or a few, so I have to look into those a little bit more and see what else I can and can't break. Alright, so what I'm looking to do right now is I've fixed up some of the things there, but I'm going to start focusing on the next enchantment. So I built something here real quick to show off, like, this is how a typical person would use the bow, right? Be able to shoot it, hit an enemy, except that it's never going to be that easy. You're never just going to be hitting no AI, no moving, perfectly still, silent mob like this, right? They're going to be attacking you, they're going to be hitting you, and your mouse is going to be moving around. You won't be able to aim steady. So there's an enchantment I'm looking to add called homing that I think would be really useful for the bow. And I was debating in my head, like, is this even needed with how accurate the bow already is or not? Do I have to turn on the accuracy to make this work, or maybe the speed even? But I'll figure that out after I even get it working right now, because I don't even have a recipe. I can combine it on here. It doesn't do anything just yet. This will still behave like normal. I gotta now make a algorithm to try to move the arrow towards enemies. I don't know how that's gonna work. Let's try it out. I think I figured this out, or at least a part of it. Right now, I currently just have it so that it's going to spam chat with the closest UUID entity that there is to the arrow. That way I can know which entity I should aim the arrow towards. But currently, you may notice that it's not changing as the zombie gets closer than I am to the arrow. And that is because it is probably currently just returning it its own UUID right now. I could tell probably is that because it changes every time I shoot an arrow, which means that it's probably referencing its own. So I have to remove that. I also obviously don't want this arrow pointing towards myself, so I need to remove my UUID from this, because what it's currently doing is it's literally looking at all the entities in a 10 by 10 by 10 volume around the arrow. It's going to each of them, it's recording their UUID and their distance using the distance formula from the arrow, and then it's going through that list a second time and going, all right, who has the lowest distance, and whoever's the lowest distance, we then grab that UUID, which of course is always itself right now. So let's remove that from the list as well as myself. Alright, so I have been at work with this arrow and the chat message thing. So now I shoot that arrow and it's checking, like I said earlier, in that 10 by 10 by 10. And right now there's nothing in my chat because there are no entities in this area. Now, when I summon a zombie in, immediately my chat starts filling in with that entity's UUID because it is actually able to now find the correct one. It's no longer targeting itself. It's no longer targeting me because I'm in this area now. And in fact, if I kill this guy, like that. There is now, if I clear the chat, no more messages being sent, which is interesting because as you can see, there are now XP orbs on the ground. I can actually throw items out on the ground. I have set a specific filter so that it filters out these entities as well as some interesting ones like paintings or evoker things, which is a part of the evoker attacks. There's a bunch of entities you don't even realize that are in the game. One that I actually kept in that I thought was really interesting, I'm going to show you really quick. It is leads, specifically their leash knots. I decided to keep this in because I think it'd be interesting if you're trying to like take out a lead knot, it would be able to home towards that. There'd be an interesting interaction for the homing to target onto. There's some other small cases like that. I don't really remember. I automatically took out all projectiles, so you won't have arrows homing towards each other. You won't have arrows homing towards the wither skulls that it sends out because I don't think they will do anything. I actually should check that because if it can, I want to add those back in. Shulker bullets are allowed in, so you could use this for those. There's some really interesting applications there that I didn't really realize until I started looking into exactly what I can and cannot select. But of course, that means nothing unless I can get the arrow guided into that direction. So let's figure that out next. I am now very upset because I just found out that the editor I'm using has a built-in function to calculate the nearest entity nearby, and it's better than mine because it provides more than just the UUID. I just spent like 2 hours creating that on my own, and it's built in. Isn't that so fun? Yeah, we're swapping for that. All right, so I'm doing some testing right now where I'm trying to make the arrow face towards this chicken as it falls. And notice that right now doesn't seem to be working, although sometimes I do that test. I have the tick rate down to 1, by the way, which is why everything's in slow-mo. Sometimes it is able to face directly towards the entity. What I have right now is I've created a formula out of trigonometry using the different distances in the directions from the arrow and the chicken, and they're outputting in chat here is yaw and pitch, but I think I got some of the numbers wrong. But for some reason when the arrows fall, they like do a spin as they pass by the chicken, so it's like it's trying to face towards it. The main difference being that it just doesn't gain the motion because obviously I'm shooting it straight up here, so obviously it doesn't have the motion to turn to the right. It's just like facing that direction for about a tick. So let's see, as it comes down, there's a few times where it will do a spin and it's about to come down now. Let's see if it does the spin. Seems to be doing some calculations, maybe. Oh, there it is. So it just for a split second went to face that direction. It's really weird because it seems to be like sometimes facing away, sometimes facing towards. I just have the math set up wrong. I don't get it because like even if I shoot an arrow, it's like near this one, no matter how slow it's going. That was really weird. Where did that arrow go? Usually it just doesn't even like try to hit it. Like oh, I hit that one. I don't know. Maybe it is homing a little bit, but it's just not enough to actually do anything. Like, it makes very near misses count, like that one. But it's not good enough is what I want. I want it to really be able to move towards it. So I think I need to cause a little change in the arrow's velocity itself. As you see, this arrow is currently pointing that direction. These kind of move while in place, and in theory the closest entity should be this one, and these two arrows are facing away, but this one's facing somewhat towards it. Like, you see that, how weird that is? I don't know if it's counting these other items. Maybe I had to change some of the detection, so I don't know exactly what it is. That one was facing that direction. It's almost like it's facing the opposite direction. Like, arrows, the chicken's below the arrow, but the arrow's facing upwards and towards it, but like this one's, it's facing away from it. It might be some weirdness with inverse tangent. It's a cosine function that is a little weird with how it has asymptotes and stuff, so like could be that something's up. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you, I just started adjusting values and I think I'm really close. So here is the chicken, obviously. If I shoot an arrow into the ground right here, let's actually go on this level here. It actually points directly towards the chicken. As you can see, it's pretty good, except right there. So anything on this side, it will actually face perfectly away. But then anything over here, it will face towards. So from the left side here will all face towards, right side will all face away. It seems like whenever the arrow has a more positive Z than the chicken, it will reverse direction. So we just need to inverse the yaw For ourselves, that could just be done by multiplying by a negative, I believe. And I still have to figure out the Y position, so because that is facing the wrong direction. Let's get that going. All right, so what I actually had to do was add 180 because I'm dumb with math, and then I also took the pitch and just multiplied that by -1. And now every time an arrow lands, it is actually facing towards the mob, which is great. The hard part is that this doesn't actually do much. When I shoot the arrow, it still changes its direction entirely based on the motion the arrow has, and has nothing to do with the direction it's facing. I am just stupid and thought that I could just change the direction it was facing to make the motion change. It's the opposite way around. The direction's based on the motion's not based on the direction. So even though this math is really cool and making it look like the arrow is facing towards the entity, it doesn't actually change anything. What I can still do, however, is I can look and see with my implementation, and I might still be able to use this to cause the change. At the very least, I could still have the arrow face towards the entity, just so it looks better when it's inside of blocks and stuff, because this does look pretty cool for a homing arrow. Of course, visuals is not the main task at hand. I want it to actually hit the entity, so we're gonna have to do some changing of speeds and velocities. Those are the same thing twice. I don't know why I said that. We gotta do some math. More math. Yay. Alright, this is a breakthrough. So I actually realized that the math is way easier once I just started looking at changing the velocity. So right now, all of my arrows are acting as a magnet to this chicken right now. This is like the most extreme form of the homing right now. What it's doing is it's calculating the differences in X, Y, and Z, and then we're just gonna set its velocity to that. So it is 100% accurate, like within one frame should hit the entity or the blocks in between. So that is what's currently happening. It has a range of 10 blocks currently, which I actually might increase, but it is very perfect. Let's go test it on some of these. So in theory, yeah, it just instant kills them whenever it's in the range, which isn't what we want, of course, but it is interesting. I think I currently have the targeting set wrong, so it's not targeting those zombies over there. These chickens, as soon as it's in range to get them, it gets them. So next, I just have to tone that down, which shouldn't be that difficult. I might be able to literally just multiply by a certain value. I'm unsure if I want to have it so it keeps its current velocity and modifies it to get to there, or if it's within the range, it should kind of set it towards it. I think the modifying option will be better. So it will take its current velocity, it will then add a percent or some part of that new velocity, so then it slowly curves towards, or at least makes an attempt to. Sometimes it will fail if it's moving too fast. Maybe, hopefully, I kind of want it to. I don't want it to be perfect, but let's get that into it. It shouldn't be that bad. Now, I wasn't going to record this next section until I figured out how to make the scaling work so that the homing increases when shot at a faster rate, because that way the bullet actually has a chance to actually hit the target. Because right now, if you shoot at a very pulled back power level, it would suck or do way worse at homing compared to a slow moving arrow, and I felt that wasn't fair for the drawback. So I was going to increase the radius and increase the level of which the homing works. And so I was having it output in chat. You can see when I shoot the ground here, oh, and I crashed. So as I was trying to show before the power level went to infinity, was that the chat is filling with the current power level and the homing level. So the power level is the physical power number. It's kind of the speed of the arrow itself, where homing level or homing power is a value I'm calculating that is basically the direction that the arrow needs to face, and what that is being multiplied by is the homing power, so that it is less accurate. So homing power is pretty much like a coefficient that makes the homing less effective. So the closer it is to 1, the more effective it is. 1 being 100% effectiveness. But there's a weird bug where if I just shoot this arrow here, it's acting like it's lost. It's just going in all different directions, down to different spots and places. It doesn't really seem to go into one very specific spot until it suddenly stops, and it landed over there. But that's a fun new bug, and I'm not sure exactly what's causing that. I mean, if you look in the chat, the shot power is dropping while the homing power is also dropping with it. But it's just deciding to rubber band in different positions while it's trying to hit this chicken, and I'm unsure exactly why. Of course, there's also that stupid bug where if an arrow is shot within a radius and is able to still have a shot power, it just increases because the homing power is being multiplied to the speed of the arrow, and since speed is the shot power, it increases the shot power, which increases the homing power, which increase each other over and over. And I didn't really realize that until after, so I kind of need to put a cap on homing power to be at max 1, and hopefully that will prevent that loop from happening. And hopefully maybe this bug too, I have no idea. Alright, so I think I finally have homing pretty much finished up. Let me show you what I chose for the recipe. I went for the typical book and in Bottle of Enchantings in the corner, 2 target blocks on the left and right because it's thematic, netherite scrap on the bottom to make it more expensive because this is a pretty useful enchantment, and then spectral arrow up top because it's also fitting and makes it more expensive. Homing book is now acquired. I waited till after fully finishing the enchantment before coming up with the recipe because I didn't know how powerful this would really be, and now it is exactly what you expect. So the more I charge up, the better the homing will be, and from there it was able to hit. I'll try to show you like how far the homing will go. So I mean that still hit. Let's make another one. So that's about like 2 blocks, and now it finally will stop, and that's at full charge, so it's pretty good. The best thing to really like be able to tell is when you're in like a normal world. So let me just come around here, and you're able to pretty much just like look at any entity, and if you charge up to like a pretty good amount, like you're gonna hit it just by trying to aim it just a little bit. Like that's when you really start to notice its power, is how little you really need to think about aiming like that hit and stuff like that, as long as you're fully charged, of course. And honestly, the charge really, it affects the range, but it really just affects how far the arrow will go from you. I think that's the most important part of it, really. Of course, we should also try it with the weight enchantment. I don't really know how both of these are going to work together. I guess if there's a mob if a block is in the way of me hitting a mob, it will take it out. Let's see, might be a good example. I didn't really try this yet, so I'm not even sure how it would work. I mean, obviously there's no difference when it's directly in front of you. Oh, that's weird. That is not the block it hit, but obviously stuff still needs to be ironed out with this one, the weight enchantment. It's just hard to get really consistent. Yeah, so I'll figure out those issues with the weight enchantment and the homing enchantment later. I mean, it makes sense that the arrows that you are shooting would not be able to home as well if they're being weighed down, so I'm gonna make it a feature and pretend that it's not a bug. Anyway, as I was going through all that, I decided to work on a new enchantment, a third, and I would consider the final. We have the usual setup here. This time we're gonna put feathers up and bottom, spider eyes left and right to make the Hawkeye Enchantment. That's why the spider eyes and the feathers make sense. What I did was I went through and I decreased the accuracy on the bow. I know you can be upset all you want. I might have not even decreased it enough because it's still pretty clumped up there, but the idea is that with the Hawkeye enchantment, the accuracy will increase because normal bows don't actually have any enchantment that does that directly. And now in theory this should, and I say in theory because people are inaccurate as they are. Like me shooting this arrow isn't always gonna be perfect, but it should be a improvement. I might make it more noticeable actually within the code, and that should hopefully work with the homing and the other enchantments a little bit better as well, because being more accurate with your shots is going to make weight better. It's going to make the homing better in theory. I mainly add that enchantment because it was one of those suggested in my Discord, which brings me to a important point. That's going to be the end of the video. I think that's all I want to do right now with the longbow. I want to do stuff with the fletching table later on. That's why he's been sitting here the whole time. And maybe something to do with arrows, but that will have to be for a different time. And people have been leaving suggestions in the Discord that you should go check out in the description. Link to join is there, where you can talk about different projects like these ones, or just talk to other people like Technical Minecraft, or chat about whatever. And they've been leaving a lot of suggestions there for how arrows could work. And tied in with the longbow, we could have something really powerful, really cool. This video was edited by Cinnamon. Their links will be in the description. You can also find them over in the Discord. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button so I know you did. Make sure to subscribe if you want to know when I upload next. Suggestions can go in comments, but I prefer them in the Discord, and I'll see you next time.